This to the
We're
side.
here. Hello.
Hey, hey.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm joined by the lovely Bianca. I guess she's over that way. It's hard to tell with
Yeah.
these
It's
streams.
just
This is a
okay.
brand new stream that we're super excited to be starting, and we're calling it A/B testing. I hope you can figure out why we're calling it A/B testing. Hint, Alex, Bianca.
Bianca. Yeah.
Yeah.
AB
So
testing. Yeah.
Um, we're super happy that you guys are here. We've already had some chats from Frackberg and Robertables. We're going to interact as much as we can, but on this first chat, this is going to be a very meta stream. The goal here for right now is to introduce ourselves and just let you know who we are, and then also to think about what we're doing here. Like, why are we here? What are we talking about? What are our goals for the stream? Who are we trying to reach? All that fun stuff. And so, yeah, uh, Bianca, do you want to introduce yourself, or do you want me to interview you to get started? How do you want to do this?
I mean, we could do both. I'll definitely tell the folks my name. My name is
Yeah,
Bianca St. Louis, like the city. I don't I'm not like from St. Louis. So coming to you live from Atlanta, by way of New York. And let's see. I would say that's like my quick intro, and we could probably interview each other to get things floating. But yeah.
yeah, and I'll do that. So I'm Alex, Alex Goldman, like the precious metal man. Um, and I am coming to you live from Denver, via Chicago and a couple of other places that I've lived. But yeah, Midwesterner living in the mountains and loving it out here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's like, see, developer evangelist, but what does that even mean? What are you into? What does that
I
even mean?
the I don't always know. In fact, one of the last demos that I built was an AI to try to tell people what I do, and most of my family was just more confused afterwards. So it's developer evangelism is this thing that I didn't know what I was getting
Mhm.
myself into before, but I love it. My role specifically is I'm a developer evangelist for startups. So the way that I look at it is like the developer evangelist piece is Twilio is a developer platform, and you kind of
Mhm.
need to write code, not for everything, but for a lot of it to use it. And
Yeah.
so we have a whole team of people, the DevNet, which we're both on, along with the amazing Chef Brent, who's helping us out as our producer. We're all on the DevNet, and we try to make the experience just awesome for developers. And specifically, my role is doing that for developers at startups. When I joined, there were some other people on the startup team, but none of them wrote code. So I was kind of
Mhm.
like the first person to come in and be able to like write code and talk to developers. So um, I kind of see myself as like trying to hit those like CEOs who also write code, or CTOs, or lead
Mhm.
devs, or product managers, or just developers, or really anybody, because I think there's a lot of inspiration that I like to give. But that's kind of who I'm talking to. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Cool.
And
Did
then
you like
yeah, keep going.
Oh, I was gonna say, did you always see yourself in this space, or kind of how did yeah, what was that about?
No, this was a weird one where like my most recently I was in robotics. Actually, I was working in startups for a while, either like working at for other people at startups and like startup and
Mhm.
like building out new departments in companies, or I had my own startups. And then I was kind of like trying to get like something a little more stable going. And I had some job offers kind of, and they were all to build CRMs. And I was like, well, I don't want to build a CRM. That's like
Yeah.
Salesforce. People will figure this out. I don't need it. We don't need another CRM. So I was living in Arizona at the time because my now wife had got a job there, and I just applied and really quickly started doing grad school at ASU, and got a master's degree in robotics. Um, it's something that I'd always wanted to do, go back to school, and I was like one of the first people in this new program at ASU, and I really quickly got hooked up with a cool professor. Um, one of the one of my favorite things in the world is scuba diving. and
Oh,
didn't
cool.
expect this, but went to ASU and wound up building aquatic and underwater robots. So like, who would have thunk I'm in the middle of the desert and all of a sudden I'm like literally building things that we're shipping out to Hawaii to monitor coral reef health. So that was really awesome. And then, was at a job doing robotic stuff, and it my role kept shifting because I was hired as a developer, but then at a startup, you kind of start doing everything if you can. And I was like weak on the developer side because I know how to code, I can write code, I could do it, but like my skills at like marketing and communications and product
Hmm.
management were like so much higher level than anybody else, and it was robotics, so it's like not trivial. And so I ended up doing a lot of things that weren't coding there. Um, and then yeah, after that kind of stopped for me, I was like trying to figure out what's next. I had some friends working at Twilio. I actually applied to a different job, one that our amazing coworker Giassi ended up getting. But like they're like, hey, we got this startup one for you. Try that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, that's like so much what I want to do. Because in the past, I've also like taught. I've worked in tutoring. I've done.
Hmm.
I used to work at a library in Phoenix at one point where I would like teach kids how to
Okay.
do 3D modeling. So like the education piece was something that I loved doing, but that was kind of missing from a lot of the other stuff that I had done. And so when I ended up in evangelism, I'm just like, this is cool. I get to teach people stuff. I get to build
Hmm.
some fun stuff. I see we got Rashab and Cloud on the chat.
Yes.
He's another one of our coworkers, and he's one of those people that I just like really enjoy building stuff with. And it's just I get to do that. I get to build a lot of demos, and I get to teach people, and I get to kind of give back to the community. Right? This is a job where we get to give back a lot. So I love
Yeah.
it. And Bianca, you also have a very similar job title to me, but
Yeah.
it's a little different.
Yeah, so I would say like my one similar to you. I mean, I wasn't scuba diving, so that's not, that wasn't my detour. But yeah, I think for me like I've definitely always had that passion for building, so whether that was like companies, startups, venture, right? But I do think like that through line around like building things, creating things, how do we build them, bring them to life? But I would say in my particular role here, I love to think about like those unconventional builds, as I like to say, right? So, yes, we're always building like SaaS, these like software companies, but also like, how does someone at a museum think about, using some of these tools? How does, a real estate agent, right, think about leveraging Twilio? But I think for me, it's really like, how do we start to empower all types of folks to see the power of, Twilio or even just kind of some of the other tools that we have. Um, so yeah, I think that to me was just kind of like a pull, but I would say it definitely has been aligned with that through line of like, what does it look like when people are like empowered to build cool stuff? So I think for me, like definitely that's been like
Yeah.
a thing.
I like that because you're like the way that I target startups, like you target builders, and there's a lot of overlap. But I
Yeah.
really appreciate you like talking about how it's different, right? It's not this, it's like it's kind of both. It's a yes and thing. Like you can
Yeah.
be a builder, not at a startup. You can be a startup, not building. Um,
Mhm.
in fact, like
Like,
the thing that is the hardest for me is when I get startups coming being like, I really want to use your service, like, but I don't code and no one at my company codes. What do I do? And I'm like,
yeah.
find somebody else to code it. I don't know. Like it's that's maybe the hardest one for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's I'm really excited at some point soon. I think Twilio is launching their like ISV marketplace, and that'll change that a lot.
Yeah.
But anyways, but Bianca, how did you get here? Like, did you think you were going to be doing evangelism?
Oh my gosh. No, not at all. Like, I was like, does anyone really feel like, yes, I'm going to be a developer evangelist? Well, actually, okay, maybe just like that. They would, they did the developer evangelist dance.
Lizzie
Um,
Siegel wanted to, that was her.
okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Maybe there's like one or two. Um, so it's interesting. So it's like, I wouldn't necessarily say like I woke up and I was like, today I'm going to become a developer evangelist. But I do feel like there were parts of my journey that were often like, you should probably go in this direction. Um, and I think for me, it was just like, what am I like sharing a message about? Right. Like, and for me, the message I feel like I'd always been sharing with whatever network, with whatever I was doing was like, build, create, get it out of your head, like do something with it. And I do think like that is so in line with, a developer evangelist, right? Which is like build, create, do something. And I think like moving away from just like the strategy, the ideas, and kind of like what are the tools that we have available to make some really dope stuff happen. And so it's like, even though I wasn't specifically like seeking out, I'm going to be an evangelist, right? I do think there was this kind of pull into how do you connect those that are building to the right tools, the right resources, the right people. I don't know what side you are on me, but yeah. That that we can kind of collaborate together to build some really cool things. So I think for me it was just like I didn't come seeking this out, but I would say like it was probably in alignment the whole time. So I think that to me was a cool thing. And then also like I talk about this all the time. Like I work with the coolest people. And I just love the folks I work with too. So I think, doing this work at Twilio has also been really dope too. I'm a little, I'm a little biased. But yeah, so I think I didn't necessarily think like, oh, I was going to be here, but it did make sense. Like once I did land
Yeah.
here, that makes
And
any
you
sense.
have like a background in history of like building in startups too. Like I think we
Yeah,
both
yeah, yeah.
share that.
Yeah, so startups, like there was like a VR startup at one point. I've done like a hair app at one point. So kind of like a hair calendar. Um, just a lot of things that were just kind of like, how do you support people? I would say there's definitely been a theme for me, which is like productivity. Like productivity. How do you optimize your life? So I would say those were definitely some themes for me on the startup space. But yeah, I would say, yeah, that was also like a piece of the journey, right? Which is like, especially when you know how hard it is to build, how hard it is to create things, like you understand how important it is to have the right tools, to have the right people around you. So I do think like understanding that journey and just making sure that like, okay, how can I create that support for other people too? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Definitely. It's I love that element of giving back. I mean, that's why I love this job is like people can
yeah.
email me questions and I can answer them. And it's not like that's like what I'm supposed to do. It's not taking away. I've
Hmm.
like my one of like past jobs, it's been like helping people has like been at my detriment because I've been like helping people too much and don't get my own stuff done. And then like, and now it's like when I was interviewing for this job, I'm like, how do I be successful? And they're like, help people, like just be helpful. I'm like, that sounds amazing. Um, so I kind of gave a little preview of what I was into. I mentioned robotics and scuba diving. Bianca,
Hmm.
what are you into? Like, what gets you excited when you're not thinking about sending people text messages?
Um, ooh, okay. I mean, text messages, it takes up 99.9% of my day, my time, my heart. JK. Okay, so what am I into? I would say I'm a huge foodie. Like I love just like food, new cuisine. So that's something I'm really into. Um, Definitely like yes. Yes. Um I would say food is one. I love bouldering. I really enjoy just kind of bouldering. That's a thing for me.
I didn't know that about you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I do actually really enjoy bouldering. And what else am I into? Um, okay, I have this secret thing of like in my mind, I'm just like I'm just gonna like score a film. Like in my mind, I'm just like whenever like a scene happens. Okay, so this
Like
is like
make the
my behind.
music.
Yeah. So behind the scenes, yes. Behind the scenes, sometimes like when I'm watching a scene, I was like, oh, I know the perfect song for this. And I'm like, oh, and then the song here would be very like do 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 do. Like, so in my mind, I'm just like creating.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that's like my behind the scenes. So I would say like stuff around like arts, music, physical activity is definitely huge. Got back into golf, so definitely spending a bit more time there. But I would say, yeah, food, just fitness activities, um, music, kind of getting back into my musical space. But I would say like creativity and the arts. It's like my thing.
I love that. I used to boulder a lot. when I was like living
Ooh.
in LA. And then I moved to
Ooh.
Colorado and people are too good and it's just like stopped being fun. Um,
Yeah, like,
so like
yeah,
that,
I haven't
yeah.
done it, like, I'm like, I stick to the indoor for now,
Oh,
but
for sure.
I was just like, one of these days, but I don't know, like, falling near the rocks, it's a
Yeah.
lot. I'm a
I
little
mostly have
concerned.
done I've done a lot of like sport climbing outside, but like bouldering just indoors.
Yeah.
That's there. And then like yeah, you mentioned food. I love cooking too. I feel like people
Mhm.
say like, what's your creative outlet? And it's cooking. Um, to the point where like I cook most of the meals for my family and I love it. And you know, over the weekend I spent hours and hours and hours smoking a lamb leg. Like that was my exciting
Ooh,
weekend activity. Um,
sounds delightful. Is there okay, was there, like, a
yeah.
dish that folks in your family were like, "Ooh, we don't know about this," but then it actually ended up being, like, really good?
Um, my my mom in particular is really bizarre, and she like only likes super rare meat. So she
Okay.
like for years was anti brisket. She's like, it's too well done. And then I made her a brisket and I smoked it, and she's like, okay, this is good.
Okay, okay. That's how you know. That's how you know.
Yeah,
You, like, change her POV on the brisket.
yeah,
Brisket is pretty good. I like a good
yeah.
brisket. Um, you know?
So
Okay.
Bianca, is there anything in your past that you think makes you successful today?
Ooh. Hmm. Let's see. I would say just being exposed to so many different cultures. So, like, I feel like growing up in New York, you're around all types of people. And I feel like the introduction to new different cultures for me introduced me to kind of like there are different ways that people approach problems. I feel like that also helped me, even in startups, right? Which is like someone was looking at something from like one lens. And then I was just like, actually, like, you know, maybe this other community might see it through a different lens. So I think for me, like, being around so many different cultures, existing in a lot of different worlds. So like my family's from the Caribbean, but like, I grew up in the States. So like even just that cultural difference there. And then also just like even in school, having such a diverse network of friends and things like that. I do think like that to me has often been super helpful because I think I don't have a very linear way of looking at the world and I don't have a linear way of even looking at solving problems. And I think especially like from a founder standpoint, from a product standpoint, like you don't want to be so like this is the only way that we can solve this problem, right? So I would say like that's one thing that sticks out to me. Um hmm I'll give this a bit more thought.
Yeah.
What's one that comes up for you?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but I think the one that comes up for me is I in my first job I was working in the data center space, and
Mhm,
it's like giant computer systems and like very highly engineered, and um, but what I quickly learned was that sometimes like talking to the engineers or like the people who like from a high level design standpoint wasn't the most productive. It's like, yeah, the engineers
mhm.
like can tell you the math, but then like you need to like go to the pipe fitter, the guy who's like literally screwing the cold and hot water things together to understand what's going on. And you need to go and talk to an electrician to understand what's going on. And I think like that gave me this respect because I mean, like, you come out of I think you come out of undergrad sometimes having this idea that like you're super smart for going to schools and they're good schools, blah blah. And like,
Yes.
you know, you then realize like some of the smartest people you're gonna meet didn't have that formal education. They've just been doing something
Mhm.
really well for a very long time.
Yeah.
And um, I like learned to really appreciate that and just like figure out in everybody I talk to what is something really interesting that I'm going to learn from that person. And I feel like that's something that really helped me when I got into startups because you have to have a lot of empathy for people going through problems and you have to not try to solve their problem, which can be really hard. And you also have to realize like they have a unique experience that's different than yours, and embrace that. And I think that the more and more I've done that through my career, culminating now at Twilio, where like we are lucky enough to work on an amazing team where everybody has something to give, is great. And then like one of the things that we've started doing that I love, little plug for an event happening in 2 weeks on the 20th. Bianca and I, along with her another coworker Emily, are going to be interviewing a bunch of startup founders in the AI and communication space. And like talking to these founders, you just learn so much, and they have so much like experience. And it was just so much fun to talk to them about like how they're thinking of AI and how it relates to like communications and serving customers and whatnot. And so like I think that those early moments of realizing that like everybody has something to teach me is something that like for my whole life, it just makes it better. Just like every of my interactions is just like better because I have that mentality going in.
It does. I mean, that when you bring that up, it also makes me think about like if I were to think about something else that's made me super successful, um, is really this aspect of curiosity, right? So it's like so easy to be like, this is what it is and this is what it's not. But like when you take a moment and are like, okay, well, what's another alternative? What's another possibility? And I think just being curious about possibilities and not just being like there's this is the only way has really been super helpful because here's the thing about curiosity, it's like you don't always have to go down that path, right? But you could just again just be curious about like, well, what are some other ways I could look at something, explore something. So I would say like curiosity has definitely helped a ton throughout my career of just asking questions, observing, looking through things. But I think even just like that asking questions part is so underrated, I feel like, especially in this day
Yeah,
and age, you know?
for sure. Yeah, we assume we know a lot. I'm gonna just also open this up where I want to move on in a minute, but like chat, if you guys have any questions for us, we'd love to answer your questions. I know we got some. My mother, we were talking about like temperature of things, and my mother, her word was code blue. Like she didn't want it red, she wanted it like purple and blue. Like that, it's so temperature rare. Um, cool. So what do we got? Uh, we got what's A/B testing. So the term A/B testing is usually something that you do with like website or marketing material where you like test two things out and you just figure out like which subject line did people open more in an email, right? So it's kind of this marketing term, but being an A name and a B name, we decided that that's it. And then like this is actually a great segue, Chef Brent. Thank you. Which is you know, why are we here? Which is like, this is an experimental place for us, right?
Yep.
We both run a lot of different programs and projects at Twilio. We do webinars. It's more formal. We have like this stuff built, and we wanted a space where we can be a little more loose and creative and try new things. So that's why A/B testing felt like the right thing. Besides, we're always keen for a good pun. We're like here to just try things out and explore. And so like, yeah, that's really our goal. And the more we hear from you about what's landing and what's not, we appreciate that, because that's how we know if we're doing a good job or not.
Yeah,
Um,
I think definitely like that energy of experimentation, and then also like we know what we like we kind of know what we're doing, but we also are figuring it out. We have our "I know what I'm doing" face. That's my "I know what I'm doing"
yeah.
face. But yeah, so I think we're like we're still kind of figuring this out, you know, and defining that as we go. I love that this is like on this stream we're figuring this out. So yeah, I do like that question. What do we
Yeah.
have?
So, and Robertables nail it down more. He says, "What are your personal goals for the show, and anything you're anxious about with the new show?"
Oh.
Um, do you wanna start with personal goals, or you want me to, Bianca?
Let's see. I would say one is definitely like we want to create a corner on the internet, the web, the world. So deep. Just really creating corner on the web where we can just create a community around experimentation, asking questions, exploring. So I think that's one goal. Or that was actually multiple goals, but
Yeah.
but
I yeah.
that's yeah.
No, that's the same for me. It's like I want a place where I can build things without a lot of like, this needs to be a blog post or this needs to be in a webinar, and it can be a little more free floating. And I've also like built a ton of like very quick prototypes, and I feel like this format might lend itself to building something a little more robust, and things that like might be like take longer to show off and how we built this. And then I also want to talk to people. Like we've had so many
Mm-hmm.
great interviews that we've done, and like I want to get those out there in new and interesting ways, because there's so many amazing people that are not just using Twilio, but just like are good people to talk to. Um, and so I'd say like that's another one of my goals, like get out there talking to people. And then you asked about anxious things. So
Ooh.
Roberto Bowles, I think you were there the first time I streamed. And the first time I streamed was so bad that I don't think it can ever get worse. I started as I was starting to do the demo, Xcode needed to update, so we were just vamping for 30 minutes while Xcode updates because it's slow. And then I finally got to the demo, and then after 20 or 30 minutes of demoing, my internet cut out, and I had no idea. Um, and so I was just talking, and like I was like, it's really quiet. No one's talking back to me. Where are my buddies on the stream? And then my internet was gone. So like, it's never going to get worse than that. But I'd say like, if there is something I'm anxious about, I just want to make sure that what we're doing lands with people and is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try really hard to do this every week, but that's a lot of content. And so finding that balance of, being able to show up here with like a really good plan and give you all something that's like awesome content versus having things that are a little more like, hey, we're going to have, our coworker come on and tell him about his journey. Like, Rashab's, if he's still in there, he's been in the chat. Like, I'd love to have Rashab on here and talk about his journey. He's got one of the cooler journeys into evangelism. So like making sure that the content that we're building is sustainable for us and also enjoyable by you. I'd say like that's the thing that that's anxious. So it's like nervous and excited about.
Yeah, I think the on the anxious or yeah, the nervous excitement. Definitely just finding the things that resonate. This is new and we're doing something a little different. So I do think like when you're doing things that are different, it could feel a little bit, could feel a little bit tough. So I do think just like making sure that we're aligning to the right people, that the folks that want to hear us can find us. And the ones that don't, I don't know, maybe they still hang out
Yeah.
with us. But
Well, and
yeah.
okay, that's actually a great segue, which is like when we thought about this a little bit, but like let's talk about it more.
Hmm.
Who are we targeting? Like who are we going to be like super excited that's joining this besides all of our diehards that are hanging out with us now?
Um, One shout out to Ship Happens. Yes, this is a fun group. Let's see. Okay, so who are we targeting? I would say definitely the folks that like want to build. More specifically, you might find a startup founder in the mix. Someone who's like, oh, I'm a I use the term like, oh, I'm a fake developer. But like, yes, the person that identifies as a fake developer, but it's like, we see you. Well, actually, no, we don't see you because we don't have like tracking software. But the person who's building, who's no, we're not supposed to say that. Okay. So the person who's like building and tinkering on their free time that like wants to take their stuff to the next level. So I would definitely say, you have your startup founders in there. You have your, just like folks who are tinkering on the side that want to kind of take things up a notch. I would say those are a few. Definitely folks who just want to build. What are you thinking, Alex?
Yeah, I like there's like this element of like I want to be relevant for people in a pretty broad technical span of the
Hmm.
world. Like, like if somebody's a hardcore developer, hopefully we have something for them for, thinking about like other sides of it, not just like writing better code. Um, and then, but all the way down to the people who are like involved in technical things, but aren't necessarily writing the code. So I think like that's a pretty broad range, but you nailed it, which is like, who are the folks who are actually trying to build something? Who are the folks who are actually thinking about interesting problems and their solutions? When I write content, I feel very lucky because I get to write content not just for developers, which is not the norm for the developer network, but I get to write content for CTOs and product managers and CEOs that are like, there's a whole range. And so I also think like this is kind of there for that, which is like, it's definitely technically minded. So like, I'm definitely like, we're going to be talking tech. We're going to be talking, like how to code, how to build things, whatnot. Like, I don't think my mom is going to enjoy this, but like she will, cause I'm here. But like, it's those people who are building. I think you nailed it, and it's a pretty wide spectrum, but that's also us, right? We are both people who have a very diverse background. As you said, we both have like varying levels of technical expertise and call ourselves, fake developers all the time. I do that a lot. My joke is I'm not a real developer. I just play one on Twitch. So I'm here playing a developer for all you. And then, I don't even know where I was going with that. I just lost my train of thought, but that's okay. But so it's like, it's that very balanced audience, but I think our goal is, and we're moving to like, what we're going to do here as well, but it's to have like that wide breadth of different experiences so that people can find different ways to inspire them.
I do like this, again, that reminder of like, we're tech minded, like that at the end of the day, that will definitely be like a through line in the work. Hopefully your mom does stop by and enjoy this. But I was like, maybe we can make a temperature app or something. Maybe that's that. Okay.
For
Brisket.
cooking steak.
Yeah. Brisket or no brisket. Maybe that's how she'll know what's on the, that's what's on the menu. But yeah, so I would say like definitely, tech minded, and like, again, I think that's the other space too, which is like, we do want the audience, we want you as the audience to feel involved on that process too, right? Like, we have an idea of what we want to bring out to life, but like, if there are things that you're like, it would be really cool to see this, like, we can give that some thought. But I do think like, that's important.
Yeah. And then that was a loose definition, but that's fine. We're here to just see who shows up and talk to you and like let you kind of guide us a little bit. And there's another aspect of this too, which I think is important to like realize and just mention, which is like we're also at work right now, right? So like there's also the Twilio side of like what are the like key metrics that we're trying to drive, and it's really engagement. And I think like seeing more of you show up is going to be really great, metrics. But there's another element that is really important to us that we're trying to go with, which is demos. So like if we at some point in this be like, hey, I watched your show and it inspired me and I built this, like if I can get like one of those, huge win. But hopefully we get a ton of those.
A ton. That's the metric. A ton.
That would be success. Just tons, metric tons, 2,000 pounds worth.
Yes.
So yeah.
Lots of metrics, all the metrics.
Yeah, all the metrics. Luckily, we've got Chef Brent on here who's analyzing everything in the background.
Okay, this might I guess I had a thought too around like, even as people are building, so we have a few folks, on the stream that probably have built some stuff. Like when folks are building, like what have been your challenges to bringing it out to light, right? Like what holds you back from bringing that out to light? So you don't have to answer our question just now, but would be interesting to see like what stops you from bringing what you've built to the forefront. Okay.
Yeah. What stops you from bringing what you built to the forefront, Bianca?
I think feeling like it's not finished yet. So like I had something that I had built on. I think maybe that's like the creative in me is like, oh, this doesn't feel finished. Or like, so I think for me, like one thing that has stopped me from like sharing more broadly is like, oh, well, maybe I could add this to it. Or, oh, well, maybe if I added this feature. So I think sometimes like, I know for myself, I can hold myself back because I have this like ideal version of what I've built. But then there's also just like, you've built something, it works, it's functional. But I think we can sometimes be on like step 50 of what we know this can be. And then you kind of get stuck there. So I know for me, like, I can sometimes feel like, it doesn't feel good enough. So yeah, I would say like, that's one thing for me that can slow me down from like putting certain things like out.
Yeah. I feel that a lot. There's always more to do and more to build.
Mhm.
I actually appreciate Robertables dropping the fear of looking like a fraudster
Mhm.
in the chat, because that's a big thing for me. Is like, I know I'm not the world's greatest coder, but I'm still writing code, and so it's like,
Mhm.
what's that look like? And it even happened recently where I built somebody else at Twilio had built something that was like connecting AI transcription, which through DeepGram, with voices through Eleven's Labs and hooking it all through a Twilio phone number and media
Mhm.
streams. And then I like put in ChatGPT in the middle of it so you could actually get responses. And then not long after, another person at Twilio like did a way better job of building that than me. And I was like, great, I'm so glad that this is here that I can point people to. But like the thing that I built felt like like inferior is not the word, but like clearly somebody did a better job. And so
Mhm.
there's a lot of that.
Mm.
And then the other thing for me is like, I don't know where it goes all the time. Like that's one of my problems with like building at Twilio too,
Mhm.
is like, okay, is it going to be a demo? Then it has to be like, it can't be too big and complex. Or is it going to,
Mhm.
am I going to like throw it up on GitHub? But then like, how are people going to find out about it? So a lot of it's like, what's like sometimes I'll just build stuff for myself, which is fun. But then like, where's it going
Mhm.
afterwards? Um,
Yeah.
is
I think I think
definitely, yeah, I heard one.
no, yeah, I think what's interesting with like the stuff that you bring up, which is like when you're seen as the expert, like does the expert have space to kind of make mistakes, right? And I think like when you're seen as the go-to person that folks are coming to for insights and guidance, and it's like, wow, look what you've built, right? Like I think we can keep that forever pressure on ourselves. So I do think like yeah, I do think that you bring up an interesting point even around this space of just like, you know, like it just made me start to think about like expertise and when people are looking to you for that guidance and then you're feeling
Mhm.
like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a little
But
shaky.
yeah, but then Frackberg just dropped something in the chat, which makes me think of why it's important to just do it for us, which is, I
Yeah.
get overwhelmed just getting started. Me too. And that's huge. And it's, I think we're in a really interesting position where like
Mhm.
we can write demos that help people get started. And so like there's a part of me that
Yeah.
like as we're talking about this and seeing like what the hard thing is, like, if you're trying to build something that has, features 1, 2, and 3, and I've built something that already
Mhm.
does feature 1, it's going to be a lot easier for that person to go build 2 and 3, or to build something
Mhm.
beyond or the next step. Because like when I try to build something, the first thing I do is see what else is out there and see what code I can copy. That is right. Copy pasta is my favorite type of code. And it's like if somebody's written something already and there's a framework and I'm not having to start from scratch, that feels a lot less overwhelming. Um, which is like, if you have some of that infrastructure, it feels a lot better. And like, honestly, that's probably the thing that's kept me from like feeling like a real coder, is like, I don't always know how to build stuff from scratch. If you have an
Mhm.
existing code base, I can write code in it. If you want to give me like a bunch of prototyping tools, I can make everything work. Like, my hammer is typically Airtable these days. I just like make everything work in Airtable with like the APIs. So a lot of it's like, you know, I hope that like, as I see some of these things people are putting in chat, and also feel that like, constraint within me about like starting and building, like let's let's fix that. Like let's look at that and let's try to get people past that hump so that you can start to build. Like I think that that would be a huge win if we, like I said, get people who like, I built stuff because I saw this on there.
Mhm.
Which I get. I've gotten one or two people who've like reached out from a blog post and been like, this was great. I used it and I'm using it for this. And that feedback is huge for us.
Yeah. I think there's also this space too, which is like we especially in this space like you see all the possibilities and like the possibilities are like endless. So I do think like but you can't build out the possibilities if you don't start, right? So I do think like not forgetting like the starting point, the building, the foundation. So I think that's a thing. And it's so interesting because like I think even along those lines, like there's probably someone that's been in your shoes, right? So I do think like I'm thinking about like there's probably an opportunity too for us to even surface like whether it's your story, Alex, or like are there other people, right, that are interesting to us that have built some really cool things that needed to get over that hump of building. So I do think like that could be an interesting place, right? That we focus on or anchor in on? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally hear that and I agree. And I think like, yeah, thinking about what's stopping people from building is going to be an important part of what we do, and like getting
Yeah.
them through that. So it's there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and as Roberta Bowles mentioned, like we can be silly, like that thing that I mentioned where I like put ChatGPT in a phone call. I used it because for Halloween we put eyes up in our front windows, and then I put teeth on my front patio and turned my house into a monster. And then I like created a phone number
Hmm.
so people could call my house and like talk to the monster. And so like silly stuff is fun, and I love that inspiration. So
Yeah.
like hopefully we can stay silly too, because we when Bianca and I get together, which we've had the pleasure of doing like 3 or 4
Yes.
times, we laugh a lot, and hopefully
Yeah.
we do that on the stream a little bit, because otherwise,
Yeah.
what's the point? Um,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, and so you know, thinking too about like what do we want to talk about? Like, what are the things that are exciting to us in the tech world? I think we've talked a lot about like building and where that is, but like, what areas are there for us? And like one that I'll just drop to start off with is like, look, we work at Twilio, so we're going to be doing stuff with Twilio. And so like when there's fun ways of communicating with people and where that becomes a fun aspect of it, like that's going to be a part of it. And also like there's a lot of other tools out there that use
Hmm.
Twilio that we can talk about too. So I think like the first topic of conversation that I think we definitely is going to be here is just Twilio, because we're Twilio and that's it. But that's not all. I think there's more. So like what are some other things that you are excited about and that you want to talk about on screen, Bianca?
Yeah. I think there's like, it'll be cool to see. I think even going back into like the things that you can build, like what things plug in with Twilio. I think that'll be cool to see. People, right? So like what people are cool, what folks are, testing out new things. So I think it'll be cool to just kind of incorporate different stories. I know we even for our like AI searchlight, we had a lot of really awesome startups. So I feel like the more that we can pull even in some of those people, right, that have built really cool things, I think that'll be something I'm excited to see. But yeah, I think like, yeah, whether it's like what tools can you leverage as you're building out things on Twilio, what people are interesting, stories that are interesting, right?
Mhm.
The founder journey, or even just different ways that people are tackling different problems. I think those are a few things that come
Yeah,
up.
that's great. And I love the like, I mean, startups in general are just because of what we do. Startups and
Yeah.
builders are going to be like a theme that we talk about a lot for sure.
Hmm.
And yeah, if anyone hasn't have it, I hope Brent, I don't know if you have it handy, but if at some point you want to drop a link to the AI Startup Searchlight, it's a super cool event. We're going to be interviewing them on March 20th with a Transform Together is the like
Hmm.
event that we're doing. It's really with that. So that's going to be super cool. Segue. Um,
Hmm.
or not segue, sorry, intermission there. But yeah, I think like thinking more about the tech side of things. Um, look, AI is the hot thing right now. AI is gonna be a thing we talk about. Technically, my like master's degree in robotics was like in artificial intelligence. So like in theory, I've studied it, which makes it more interesting for me. Um, I'm gonna throw Bianca under the bus here. She's also has someone named Sam in her phone. You guys can guess who that is. So like I think that we both have some experience there. Um, Good. I'm glad that I got to call you out a little bit.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, I did it.
You did.
Sorry.
You did.
But anyways, so like I think AI is going to be a part of it. And AI is, from a builder perspective, is this really cool thing, because if you can't quite fit pieces together with code, you can use AI to kind of do a fuzzy fit. That's kind of like how I think of it. It's like if it's like too hard to program something to like discreetly understand everything that's going on, AI can kind of make that go away. So like I think AI for builders is really important. Not saying
Mhm.
like none of us are going to be like talking about like foundation models or things like that, but I think AI as a tool to help get over the hump of building is really important. And then from the tech side, I love finding different ways to wrap a prototype. And so like I want to talk about like what are the tech things that are easy. That's like sometimes when I want to go build something, I just want to go talk to somebody and be like, hey, here's the thing I want to build. And then I want them to come back and tell me like, great, you're going to code in this language and you're going to use this backend tool and this front end tool. And like doing a thing about that a little bit will be cool.
I think that
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Go
think
ahead.
the other piece, even on the prototyping side, which is like, how do you start to move like beyond the prototype? So even kind of adding some structure, adding some containers, right? To that, we do talk a lot with startup founders. So I do think like, yes, you've created this thing, but if you are curious about like going beyond the prototype, right? Like, what does that look like for you? And then like, how do we start to help you scale out that idea? What are some other tools that you're not even thinking about leveraging that could help you on different parts of the scale as you're scaling? So I do think
Yeah.
that'll be another like another space too, as we're thinking about like the technical solutions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, the DevNet is awesome in how much stuff we have to like get people started in the demos we do and whatnot. But like, yeah, once you get to scale and like once you build something out that's more than that little quick demo, there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of, places that hopefully we can help. So I think that's really cool. And then, I'd also have a lot of fun if at some point we, do some IoT or robotics builds and we have that muscle. We can do it. I've got if anyone watched the last Signal, which was like 6 or 8 months ago now, I did a little demo with Jeff, and like part of it was like, I'm this hacker builder, but like I actually have all that stuff. I like have a closet full of like little electronic components. So like hopefully we can do some fun builds that are kind of like move into the physical world a little bit. I think that would be a lot of fun too. But we'll see what we can do, because as soon as you add a physical component to anything, it's so much harder. Like trying to get something working in the real world as opposed to just like on a website is a different beast, for sure. And then, I think this is a good thing, which is like, how do we want to show up to these meetings? Like, what are the different, I think the formal term that we would use here is like, what are the content segments that we're going to have? But like,
Fancy.
we're going to show up and have different ideas of what we want to do every time we show up. And
Yeah.
like, hopefully, we can give a little bit of a menu and see what people are liking and see what's resonating and see what we like doing too, right? If we don't enjoy it, I guess if we don't enjoy it, but the fans love it, maybe we'll have to keep doing it. But like, it's a big difference if like you enjoy what you're doing. So like some of the things that I want to do is like, I want to build, I want to live code or have some working code and do demos and like walk through stuff on GitHub. Like I want to have some code written here. And I think we'll be a fun team for that, because we both have a little bit of coding background. We both like consider ourselves builders to different degrees and coders to different degrees. And I think working together through some of that stuff is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I do think like when you said that, what came to mind to me is like, I was like, ooh, let me dust off some of the pieces, some lines of code that I've neglected a little bit. So, you're dusting off. I mean, you have your robotics in your closet. I probably have some code that just has been there. Projects started and just have just stayed there. So I think definitely like dusting those things off and just kind of like bringing them back to life. I do think, building more there. That'll be fun. I'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Bianca, I have not seen you code. I'm calling you out. I haven't seen you write any code yet. And
Oh,
so like,
yeah.
I'm excited to
Yes.
have that adventure with you.
Yes, no, that'll be fun. And
Yeah.
it was so cool. Like on a recent build that I had, I actually leveraged one of your blog posts. So shout out to you. I know. I know. I don't know if I told you, but yeah, I leveraged one of your blog posts to
Which one
build
was
out
it?
some. It was I think it was like the one where you mentioned Airtable. It was the one, it was like I think it might have been your baby not baby.
Yeah.
Baby.
I'll tell the
Yeah.
story of that, because I think that was like the first thing that I built and published for Twilio, and I still get people emailing about it, and I loved it. So I right now have a 14-month-old daughter, so like still in this whole new parent thing. And I had like started my like basically I found out that we were pregnant the same on like the same weekend that I started interviewing with Twilio and was like, oh, this could actually happen. I might get this job. And so like it was pretty like I was only at Twilio for like 3 or 4 months before I went on leave. Um, but my daughter was also 10 days late in joining us. And so for that last like week of work, I was kind of like, well, what am I doing here? Like it was over the holidays. So I'm like, there's not a lot of people around, but like I don't want to start leave yet because I want to come back as late as possible. And so I built this app that if it was basically it used Airtable backend, and if anybody texted, most of it was my mother texting. But if somebody would text the app, it would be like, "Is the baby here yet?" And we would every day post like a fun picture of like, "Nope, still walking the dog, still like waiting," until
Mhm.
the baby finally came. And it was just like a really fun build, and got inspiration for that one from one of our coworkers, from Nikki. Um, and just like built it, and it was fun, and I shared it with all my friends, and they all got to see this fun little thing, and they all got to leave me messages on it, and it was just a lot of fun to like build this and get this out there. And it was like super rough. There was not a lot of code. It was all written in like Studio and Airtable. um but like that, that's there. And then that like inspired, a few months later, I had somebody
Mhm.
from Metro Housing Boston, which is like a affordable housing group in Boston. He's like, I saw your blog post. I want to do all this stuff. And so like I've helped him write. So it's so rewarding to like build these things that are just fun and like, a piece of me, and then have those inspire other people to build and get out there in that way. So like that was a really cool thing. I'd love to do more like that. And then but I don't only want to code on this channel. Like this is fun. I like talking to you.
Mhm.
We do a lot of interviews with other people, and so like I
Yeah.
want to bring that in, whether it's some dev netters that we want to talk to, or other people in the tech world, or founders, or
Mhm.
some of our amazing audience wants to come on. So like I think bringing some other people on and talking to them about what they're working on, and what's going on for them, I think that would be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I see like yeah, having some really dope folks that even have built like there's all those people you're like, "Oh my gosh, like did you build this?" Oh, we had like someone who did magic tricks, like leveraging Twilio, right? So like even folks like that, other folks who built other things. So there might be folks that have built like a startup, using tools like Twilio, or even someone who's like building out magic tricks, right?
Yeah.
So I do think there's a variety of people that leverage these tools that are building some really awesome stuff. So I think it'll be cool to just like talk to them. And then also going back into like we have a lot of great people on the DevNet. So I do think like yeah, I think even just like pulling some of those folks in a bit to kind of get we can learn their stories. We could chop it up with them. They're cool too. So I think we can do a mixture.
Yeah, there was one, I'm trying to find it. There was one I saw like over the weekend, like a YouTube short, and this guy just like he
Mm-hmm.
builds like useless inventions, like that's his whole thing. And he had a bunch of sponsored content from it's literally like at unnecessary inventions on YouTube is this guy. And he builds a bunch of like unnecessary stuff. And I think this was like a sponsored one by Honda, but he had something where you could send a text message and it would like a finger would come out of like an actuator and lock a car. And I was like, is this guy using Twilio? Like I want to know. So it's like
Question.
those fun
Yeah.
builds. Yeah, I hear you. I think there's just some really cool people building some neat stuff out there, and I want to highlight that. And then the other thing that I think is going to be a little bit more experimental, but I'm curious about. So like we Chef Brent reached out to this guy. He hasn't responded. Um,
Okay.
I think he's kind of like, I don't know. He's not like the biggest deal on YouTube, but I think he's decently large deal. So who knows?
Okay.
Um, but the other thing that I want to try out at some point is, so like we run webinars, and like we
Mhm.
like you just ran this a really cool builder workshop where we got to do a demo focusing on like fan engagement. In 2 weeks from today, I'm running a webinar on like using um, like thinking omni-channel. So when you communicate with customers, not just talking on one channel. And it just so happens, we didn't plan this exactly, but it's right before we stream. And so
Mm-hmm.
like, we might do some streams where it's a little bit more of like a Q&A where we're taking, like making it a little bit of an open forum. People can throw things in chat and we can answer. And hopefully we'll have some other, we will, not hopefully, we'll have some other things to talk about besides that. And so I think like being an open forum and like just making it about community engagement sometimes and just answering questions would be a lot of fun. And maybe we'll even have some guests on here for that one, or we'll try to tackle it ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's, yeah, because I think sometimes like the webinars or the blog posts, like, right, like they have tons of information, but I do think having that space where we could be in conversation and dialogue, I think there's like lots of value there. So I think
Yeah.
incorporating that very like open forum aspect, I think it'll, so bring your questions,
Yeah, we
all
want to.
things.
Yeah. I want to set up a mailbag email at some point for our show. I just got to figure out how to do that within the Twilio world
Okay.
of like, you can send us an email and we'll get it.
Okay. Are we gonna create like a jingle?
That's yeah.
Do we have theme music too? So we're
Do
gonna
we
have a
need some
mailbag.
theme music? Yeah.
Okay.
We should get on that. I know we're like other projects that like I'm working on are like some videos and stuff, and working with Brent too to get some like fun video components to it. But like, yeah, we're here to experiment, to explore, to learn, to engage. I think we're just here to just like try to have some fun and do something fun, because like Bianca and I tell each other this a lot, but we really enjoy working together. And I like working with you, Bianca, and I think our is just to like bring that out to the world, because like we have fun.
Yes.
Yeah, and we just want to like come here and have fun and talk to people and get inspired and by you and inspire you. And yeah, I'm just really excited to finally start doing this. This is something that like for like months we've been talking about, and like we're here. We
are. It's happening. See, we started our builds, kind of.
We started the build. Yeah. This is what we're building.
We started the builds. So I do even think like, there are all these conversations that you might have, right? Like the side builds. So I do think like us just doing it out in public, but they talk a lot about like building in public. So, we can't tell you, hey, put it out there, while we're not even doing the same thing. So I think this is also us taking our own advice of like, we're building in public. We are building this show with you in public. We are building, our ideas out in public. So I do think kind of, like that's we're doing it together. So this is step one of our builds. So just join.
Yeah.
Do it.
One thing we've even thought about is like, do we like make a fake startup that we're just gonna like build out the tech for, think about like the ways that we're gonna communicate? So that might be something that you see us do once we kind of like get down the path a little more and we feel like this is a little more fleshed out, as we might like have that startup that startup's not the right word, because it wouldn't be like a full-on startup, but like that like product thing that we're gonna build that's just gonna like exist out there for the betterment, because we don't need we don't need side hustles. We're happily employed by Twilio, and we're going to stay that way. Fake. Yeah, exactly. Chef Brent says fake product sounds fun. And the question is it going to be owl themed? Because every single fake build at Twilio is owl themed. Like one of our favorite demos is, or what?
Or it could be a bakery. We could have a, cake or pie themed.
Oh yeah.
The drama, the divisiveness. But yes, okay. So we could have it owl themed, bakery.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do lots of themes, but every demo is like owl shoes, or when I was doing a demo at for Signal, it was I made up a fake company called Owl Fruit, which was like a play on Adafruit for like selling electronics. It's owls are the Twilio mascot, if you didn't know. it's not like our logo. I don't know, like Chef Brent might know more about where that comes from. Shout out to Chef Brent. He recently celebrated 10 years at Twilio, which is like a
Woo!
lifetime. So we're so lucky to have his support on here to help us make this stream. He's in the background producing it. He's the one picking which one of our lovely faces gets to show up at any moment. Okay, so it's from the Draw the Rest of the Owl meme. Okay, so there's like a meme where it's like, how do you draw an owl? And it's like, it was like 2 steps. It's like draw the nose, draw the eyes, draw the owl, or draw the rest of the owl. And like, what does that mean? Right. And so I guess it's from that meme. Cool. I didn't know that. So thanks for sharing that Twilio lore with us, Brent.
Okay. Now we know.
Got it. Yeah.
Now we know. Okay.
Now we know where the owl comes from. You learned something on this stream. Yeah. Yeah. That was one of our original principles at Twilio. That's right. It was draw the owl. And so it's like, don't, like, sometimes when you don't know what to do, just like do it and write it down so that other people can learn. But like, sometimes you're gonna have to explore. Like, that was kind of the, like, it's not always been done before. How do you do it? And like this stream, I feel like we're, you know, Twilio's done this before. We've had streaming shows before by various amazing hosts. You know, like Dom hosted one. There was one with like Lizzie and Nathaniel. Like, there's some amazing people at Twilio that were like great personalities that would come on here and do like awesome streams. And so we're kind of like standing on their shoulders and like taking their learnings, but we also want to make this very much our own, right? Like, we want to, you know, find that ways of like building an engaging community that's a little more uniquely us. So I'm excited for that.
Why did I, like, when you're talking about drawing the owl, I was like, it's part of our audience participation, a photo drawing activity. Yeah. Everyone, you know,
everyone draw a picture and send it in.
Yeah, draw. You have to draw a picture of an owl. That is your homework. JK, yeah. Just kidding. No, not at all. But I do like that. Okay. Well, figure out if my drawing skills are still solid. Okay.
Yeah. Let's I just thought of another fun question, and I'm just gonna go with this. So like,
okay,
I have one of my favorite mugs here, which is an album cover from my favorite band. If anyone knows who that is, those are the Corn Cob Towers in Chicago, and that is from the band Wilco. Bianca, what's the favorite concert you've seen in the recent days?
Ooh,
total change of subject. I just want to talk about music.
That's an absolute change. I've been really into this, like, I've been on my like carnival kick. So Caribbean music has like, there's like carnival, soca. I've been in on this like very like carnival kick. So like lots of like, it's lots of like the sounds are very like, you have the steel pans, you have just very like like just it's very enjoyable music, exciting music. So I would say that's one thing. I feel like when I was back in like the Bay, I was definitely a lot into my like you know, R&B, smooth. Like, I love to go to like smaller venues. So I would say, it's like such a mixture. I'm into so many things. Live music to me never goes out of style. So I always love a good like just live music adventure, regardless of the genre. So that's a good question. But I would say more recently, soca. Kes is a huge soca artist. So I would say like Kes, Kes, was one that like that he has some fun music.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I love live music. I had this moment in like, I think it was either late 2021 or early 2022 where I was like, I went to a concert and I was like, why did we stop going to concerts? Like, I was like, oh yeah, this whole thing happened where there were no more concerts for like a year or two. And that's why we stopped going to concerts. And now I get to go again. So I like had that moment at a show where I was like, I love this so much. Why'd I stop? And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. But yeah, there's been times in my life where I've seen a ton of stuff. Usually more like on the like indie rock kind of genre of things. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like the last. I feel like I went to a really good show recently, and I'm totally spacing out on what it was or where. But I'm gonna think about it in a minute.
That's always fun because it's like you're like, this was so great, but I forgot. So great.
I remember. Well, it was obviously a Wilco show. No, not obviously a Wilco show, but I did go to a Wilco show not long ago, and the funny thing was, it was the one of our like we someone joined our team, Sarah, who joined from a different part of Twilio, and like I was at this concert, and then all of a sudden she shows up, and I'm like, oh, like I've seen you on Zoom a million times. I met you once in person. Back now, like this is awesome. But that was a really fun, like little coincidence at a show that I did not expect. But yeah, that was a good one. And then I'm really excited to, my family, and hopefully I can make it, depends on timing, but got some tickets to go see the Dead and Company at the Sphere in Las Vegas. And I'm like really excited to go see a show there. Grateful Dead's been one of those bands that I've just like loved my whole life. So I'm like,
I'll be fun.
That's gonna be a really good show, I'm sure.
And that venue, like everyone's like, that venue is just like super cool. So
I mean, did you happen to watch like the Grammys thing where like I'm not the biggest Sting fan, but like the whole thing that they did with like, or U2 did with like their like it looked insane. Mm-hmm. Like it looked so over the top.
Gotta keep it. Yeah, that'll be fun. Music is so cool to me because it's like, to me, it's just like, again, here was this like idea in someone's head, and then you layer it, and then you create something really awesome. So I think like, music for me has always been so like inspiring and just like such a great artistic medium of just how a bunch of things come together, right? To make something awesome and great. So yeah.
That's very real. And you mentioned that you want to score a movie. Maybe we'll have to get you scoring the stream.
Ooh, okay. We'll have to think about like what kind of sound vibe are we going for? Like, is it smooth jazz? I don't even feel like we're smooth jazz people. Like I feel like we need a little bit more like we need a little bit of more kick. Like we need, I don't know, like that's not what I see when I like.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. It'll have to be upbeat enough, and for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Sweet. I think we're like feeling pretty good about this. This was a lot of fun. We set a goal of being on for at least an hour, and look at us. We did it. Just, wondering if anybody else in the chat has anything they want to talk about, we'd love to hang out for a few more minutes. Otherwise, I think we might, in a minute or two, call it here. We're just like really grateful for everyone who did show up and watch us. This is, as we're just trying to be ourselves. So this is a little bit raw, but we're happy to be here with you. And I'm personally so excited to be joined by Bianca in this. And we're going to try to build something that you all just enjoy and get a lot out of, and that we, get to fill our cups giving back to all you. So like, this is, it's a mutual thing, but
that was beautiful, Alex. That was touching. I felt that. I felt that in my heart. I'm super excited.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a controversial goal for the stream as well that I want to throw out there, which is like, if I can get Bianca so happy and excited she cries, that'll be a
no tears.
Good tears.
No, none of the tears. I'm gonna crack up because there's gonna be one moment I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so, because I'm not like a crier. I don't do the crying thing, but then every now, like it has to like touch deep in my soul. So yeah, man, good to know.
Crying's healthy.
I know.
Hopefully I get to the point of crying on stream. That'll be a good one too.
Tears on the stream. Is that a segment? Tears. What? Tears on the stream. That sounds so sad.
Only good tears.
Laughter, tears on the stream. Okay. Tears. Okay.
Emotions are real, and we have them. And like,
Okay.
So.
All right. I like this.
Cool.
All right. This was great, Alex. I kind of enjoyed this. This is good. How are you feeling? How are we feeling about this? We're excited. You hype?
Um, yeah, I'm excited. I am very excited to try all. I mean, we've like listed like 5 or 6 different types of segments we want to do. I'm excited to start thinking about those and planning those out, and
Okay.
figuring out how those are gonna look. Because like showing up and wanting and like doing a demo is like it's so much fun, but there is like some work that we need to put in beforehand to like make sure we know what we're doing, because and then we're not reinstalling Xcode the first time. But
Good
yeah,
point.
I think that I'm super excited. I'm jazzed. I'm glad we're finally doing it.
Mhm.
I think that the only good things are going to come from this, because we're going to have fun together and inspire people and build. And, we're gonna cruise this and try to get here every week to be with all of you for a while, and try this out and see how it all flows. But like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm jazzed.
Let's
Let's
do
build.
it. Let's
Yeah,
build. All right, that's part of
that's
the
it.
theme.
That's our theme.
Let's build. Okay.
Well, I think
Okay.
that's a good place to call it.
Okay.
Let's we're just gonna get sillier and sillier, which is a good thing. But like, thank
Yeah.
you all so much for joining. Thank you, Bianca. And we can't wait to see what we build with you. See you
Next
all
week.
next week. Yeah.
Yeah, next week. Bye, y'all.